The night had settled heavy over the city, wrapping its streets in silence and shadows. A single street lamp flickered above an old bus stop on the corner of Maple Avenue, its dim glow doing little to push back the creeping darkness. Underneath it sat Anna, a young woman with trembling shoulders, her thin frame swallowed by a coat that was far too small for the cold. The fabric clung to her damp skin, soaked through by the drizzle that had been falling for hours. She pulled the collar tighter around her neck, but it did little to stop the relentless shiver rattling through her bones. It was late, and she knew she had no real reason to be there. Buses came and went, but Anna never boarded them. She would just sit, watching the headlights sweep past, listening to the hiss of tires against wet pavement, and then, nothing. Silence again. The bus stop had become less of a place to catch a ride and more of a place to hide. Her life had unraveled too quickly. Just months ago, she had a small apartment, nothing fancy, but warm. A job at the bookstore where she lost herself among pages and ink. A handful of friends she thought she could count on. But one by one, it all slipped away. The bookstore closed down after years of struggling. With no paycheck, the landlord gave her 2 weeks to leave. Her friends promised help at first, but excuses piled up, and soon their phones went silent when she called. So here she was now, no home, no income, no safety net. Just the cold bench at the bus stop and the uncertain hours of night stretching endlessly before her. As she hugged her knees to her chest, Anna tried to disappear. She lowered her head, hoping the few pedestrians rushing by wouldn't notice her. But in truth, no one ever really did. People walked past with umbrellas and coats, their eyes fixed on glowing phone screens or the ground beneath their feet. To them, she was invisible, a shadow, a stranger, perhaps even a nuisance. Her stomach growled with hunger, a sharp reminder that she hadn't eaten since yesterday. She pressed her hands tighter around herself, fighting both the cold and the gnawing emptiness inside. Thoughts ran wild in her mind, memories of her old life, shame at her current state, fear of what tomorrow would bring. Would she still be sitting here? Would tomorrow even come for her? Her eyes stung, but she blinked the tears away. She had cried too much already, and the world hadn't changed because of it. Crying didn't bring her job back. Crying didn't open locked doors or fill her stomach. It only left her weaker, emptier. The drizzle thickened into steady rain, pattering on the metal roof of the bus shelter. Anna pulled her coat tighter, though it was useless. The cold seeped through everything, straight into her bones. She let out a shaky breath, fogging the air in front of her. And then, amidst the rain and loneliness, she heard it. A voice. Soft, small, hesitant. "Excuse me." Anna's head shot up. Her eyes darted around, searching for the source. At first, she thought she imagined it, her tired mind playing tricks. But then she saw him. Standing a few feet away was a little boy. He couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. His hair was damp, sticking to his forehead, and his oversized coat drooped from his small frame. His shoes were scuffed, the laces unevenly tied. Yet it was his eyes that struck her most. Large, brown, and shining with a mixture of fear and hope. Anna blinked, unsure what to say. She had grown so accustomed to being ignored, to being unseen, that the boy's gaze felt like a spotlight suddenly thrown upon her. Her lips parted, but no words came. The boy shuffled his feet, fidgeting nervously with the hem of his coat. He looked around quickly, as though making sure no one else was watching, before stepping closer. His voice lowered, fragile as a whisper carried on the rain. Can you be my mommy?" The words struck Anna like a thunderclap. Her breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she wondered if she'd misheard him, if the night was tricking her ears. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She stared, her mind whirling, her heart hammering against her ribs. "What?" she finally managed to whisper. Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. The boy met her gaze without flinching. His little chin trembled, but his eyes remained steady. I don't have one, he said softly. But, you look like you need someone too. Anna froze. The words pierced through the layers of numbness she had built around herself. All the loneliness, all the rejection, all the nights she had sat invisible and forgotten, it all cracked open in that instant. Tears she thought she had run out of welled in her eyes. Her mind raced with questions. Where was his father? Why was he out here in the rain, alone? Was he lost? Abandoned? A child asking a stranger such a question, it wasn't normal. It wasn't safe. And yet, despite the questions, despite the confusion, something deep inside her stirred. A warmth she hadn't felt in months flickered faintly in her chest. She reached out a trembling hand, unsure whether to comfort him or reassure herself that he was real. Her fingers brushed his small shoulder. He didn't pull away. Instead, he stepped closer, his little hand reaching for hers with quiet determination. Anna's breath hitched. She hadn't been touched with such innocence, such trust, in what felt like forever. The boy's voice was a whisper again, fragile and raw. I just want someone who won't leave. And in that moment, under the flickering streetlight, beneath the cold rain, at the edge of despair, Anna realized something she hadn't believed in for weeks. Even broken souls could find each other. The shivering girl and the abandoned child, both invisible to the world, had just collided in a way that would change everything. Anna sat frozen, her hand still clasping the boy's tiny fingers as if afraid he might vanish if she let go. His words echoed in her mind, "Can you be my mommy?" It was such a simple question, yet it carried the weight of a lifetime of loneliness. She swallowed hard, forcing her voice to steady. Where's your father, sweetheart? The boy's eyes fell to the wet pavement. Raindrops gathered on his lashes, sliding down his cheeks like tears. He left me here. His voice cracked. He said he'd be back, but it's been a long time. Anna's chest tightened. She looked around the street, half expecting to see a frantic parent searching for him. But the sidewalks were nearly empty now. The buses had slowed to a trickle, most shops had closed, and the drizzle had thickened into a relentless downpour. The boy stood there alone, shivering, his small frame hunched against the cold. Anna's instincts pulled in two directions. One part of her, the practical, logical part, told her she should call the authorities immediately. This was a child, abandoned, vulnerable. Someone needed to step in, to handle things the right way. But the other part of her, the part that had been hollow for so long, screamed louder. This little boy had reached out to her. Not a stranger walking by, not anyone else, her. He had seen her when no one else did. He had given her words she hadn't realized she needed, the possibility of belonging again. She leaned closer, brushing damp hair from his forehead. What's your name? Ethan, he whispered. His hand clutched tighter around hers, as though holding on to the one anchor he had left. Anna's throat constricted. Ethan, she repeated softly, the name warm and alive on her tongue. I don't know why. Your father hasn't come back, but I promise, I won't let you be alone tonight. The boy's eyes flickered with a fragile hope. Does that mean, he hesitated, searching her face for truth, you'll be my mommy now? Anna's heart ached. She wanted to say yes instantly, to scoop him into her arms and erase every ounce of pain from his little life. But reality gnawed at her. She had no home, no steady job, barely enough coins in her pocket to buy a meal. How could she promise him a future when her own life was dangling by a thread? And yet, looking into his eyes, Anna realized she already knew her answer. It wasn't about what she had. It was about what she was willing to give. She knelt down, pulling Ethan into her arms. He melted against her, clinging as if he had been waiting for this moment forever. I may not have much, she whispered into his damp hair, but if you'll let me, I'll be whatever you need me to be. For the first time in months, warmth spread through her chest. A flicker of something she thought was long gone, hope. Dash dash dash. The night stretched on. Anna led Ethan away from the bus stop, her arm wrapped tightly around his small shoulders. She dug into her pocket and found a handful of coins, barely enough for 2 hot drinks at the all-night cafe on the corner. It wasn't much, but it was something. Inside the cafe, the air was warm and smelled of coffee and baked bread. The waitress raised an eyebrow at Anna's drenched coat and the boy at her side, but said nothing as Anna ordered 2 hot chocolates. Ethan's eyes widened as the steaming cup was placed in front of him. He wrapped both hands around it, sighing deeply as the warmth seeped into his fingers. Anna watched him, her heart twisting. How long had it been since anyone cared enough to give him something as simple as a warm drink? Between sips, Ethan glanced up at her. "You're really not going to leave me?" he asked. His voice was small, but the fear in it was enormous. Anna shook her head firmly. "Never." The boy smiled, shy, uncertain, but real. It lit up his face, and for a moment, Anna felt as though she were staring at the beginning of her own redemption. Dash dash dash. Days turned into weeks. Anna contacted the authorities, reporting Ethan's abandonment. She braced herself for the moment they would take him away, place him in foster care, and close the chapter before it had even begun. But when the social worker asked Ethan where he wanted to go, his small hands tightened around Anna's arm. "I want to stay with her," he said, his voice trembling but firm. "She's my mommy now." The words lodged in Anna's chest like a promise. And so began her fight. Life didn't magically become easy. Anna took odd jobs, cleaning, waiting tables, anything she could find. She worked long hours, saved every penny, and still there were nights when she skipped meals so Ethan wouldn't have to. But through it all, his laughter filled the spaces where despair used to live. His drawings of the two of them, stick figures holding hands, covered the walls of the small room they rented. His voice calling her, "Mommy," gave her strength she didn't know she had. When the day of the custody hearing came, Anna's hands shook as she stood before the judge. She had no wealth, no fancy home, no family to vouch for her. All she had was the truth. "I may not have much," she told the court, her voice raw with emotion. "But I will love this boy with everything I am. He saved me the night we met. And I promised him I would never leave. Please, let me keep that promise." The judge studied her for a long, heavy moment. Then he turned to Ethan. "Do you want her to be your mother?" Ethan stood tall, his small chest puffed with courage. "She already is," he said simply. Silence filled the room. And then the judge smiled faintly, nodding. "Very well. As of today, Ethan is officially your son." Anna's knees nearly gave way as tears streamed down her cheeks. She gathered Ethan into her arms, holding him as tightly as she could. The boy who had whispered for a mother at a bus stop had now given her something she thought she would never have again: family. Dash dash dash. Years later, whenever people asked Ethan about his childhood, he would smile and tell the story. "I found my mom at a bus stop," he'd say. "She was cold and alone, just like me. I asked her to be my mommy, and she never let go." And every time he said it, Anna's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of gratitude. For on the night she thought she had nothing left, life had given her everything she truly needed.